look, avoiding foods that make you feel like crap isn't restrictive, it's self-respect. And people need to they need to get out of that dieting mentality. This is super restrictive, it's super arduous. I want people to love feeling great more than they thought they missed something that made them feel like crap.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
Could a simple shift in the way you think about food and fasting have significant impact on your health? Dr. Will Cole believes it can. That's what he talks to Joe De Sena about in today's episode of the Spartan Up podcast.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Loran Oils. After your next workout, help soothe tired muscles with Loran's affordable, quality-tested, 100% pure botanical essential oils. Visit LoranOils.com, that's LORANNOILS.com today and get 15% off site-wide when you use the code SPARTAN15 at checkout.
Joe De Sena here, founder and CEO of Spartan. We are here for the Spartan Up podcast where we rip you off the couch, get you away from Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever the hell the thing is that's keeping you in the living room, right? And today we're going to teach you how not to eat. I think Will Cole's with us. You're a fasting expert. Is that fair?
I'm a functional medicine practitioner, so fasting is definitely a major aspect to protocols for my patients. And I've written a book about it. But my patients are struggling with different inflammatory problems and metabolic issues. So fasting is a great tool for inflammation and regulating inflammation, and definitely great for your metabolism too.
Yeah, my mom back in the 70s, I was looking at my email here trying to figure out, I could hit do not disturb, right? I think that's, sorry. Emails come in all day, nonstop, and they keep pinging, and then people that listen to the podcast are like, you should really turn off your email while you do these. So, and you could leave all this in the podcast, Marion, because I want everybody to know what an idiot I am. But my mom back in the 70s, we lived in an very Italian neighborhood, ground zero for Goodfellas, if you saw the movie. And so cannolis and raviolis and cement were the topic of every conversation all the time. I'm not kidding. And my mom found a yogi back in early 70s, and she did an about face. And I remember in the early 80s, let me just do some math in my head, early 80s, she did a 30-day water fast while meditating in her room. And my grandfather, who was not buying into any of this, had to come break the door down and shake her into being normal, and that's ridiculous, and you're going to kill yourself. And, back then there was no yoga magazines or Whole Foods or anything. So are you saying she wasn't crazy?
I'm saying your mom was ahead of her time, definitely. And in many ways, she was just remembering where we came from as a human race. I mean, from an ancestral health perspective, humans would have done fasting for many different reasons, from a food scarcity standpoint, obviously, but also very intentionally. It's been used around the globe and in different indigenous cultures for health purposes. Our fathers of medicine, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, used fasting for his patients. Paracelsus, that I talk about in the book, he's known as the father of toxicology, and the Martin Luther of medicine, because he was reforming medicine at his time in the late 1400s, early 1500s in Switzerland. He called fasting the physician within, and he didn't have the double-blind placebo-controlled trials, but he knew that he saw anecdotally with his patients that people were getting better with fasting. So, and then that's just the early medicine use of fasting, but fasting has been used for spiritual purposes as well throughout human history. So your mom was knowing this stuff, even if it wasn't part of popular culture.
My boys, and one of them is about 15 feet away from me. I might bring them in. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. They wrestle. And so as such, there's a little bit of weight cutting that goes on right before a tournament. And last week there was a tournament, and my son was a few pounds over, so I said, just don't eat today, right? And a couple of people heard me, and it was like alarm bells went off, social services got called. He's not going to eat, you're not going to feed your kid for a day. And obviously I had that experience with my mom. I definitely bought into a lot of what you speak about and what you're into. And so that's pretty normal. I mean, one day without food, give me a break.
Yeah, right. I mean, and how far have we moved away from our roots as a society where that's radical? You know, that the idea of even missing a meal to some people in our culture today is radical. Like, we are advocating for disordered eating because of time, some slight, mild time compressed feeding window. That says more about where our culture is today and less about that.
I was thinking a lot about what you just said, actually, recently. I was thinking about what normal used to be 500 years ago, right? What normal was 100 years ago, what normal was 30 years ago. You just tell me if I sound crazy, but like, let's just turn lights out at 8 p.m. Everybody goes to bed 8 p.m. Like, let's make sure everybody's got to drink a bunch of water in the morning when they wake up. Let's turn all the hot water heaters off once a day for a cold shower. Like, there's just some simple things to do, and this country, can you imagine how much money you'd save in healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, you're not crazy at all. This is what I try to empower my patients with, and what I write about is that you do not, just because something's common doesn't necessarily mean it's normal. And equating, ubiquity with normalcy is not a good way to go about it, because chronic health problems, certainly commonplace, but these are largely reversible, preventable, overcomable, healable things. So if we can do that, if these are largely lifestyle-driven things, why should we settle for anything less? And why is that radical? We should be normalizing health and not normalizing metabolic syndromes. We should not be normalizing a shortened lifespan and increased healthcare costs. We should normalize that. And we should call it out for what it is. And we should empower people. This isn't about shaming anybody. This is really about empowering people to say, look, our body is amazingly resilient. And we have a lot of agency over our health if we give our body the chance to do so. And decreasing that chasm between genetics and epigenetics. So researchers estimate that our genetics haven't changed in 10,000 years, but yet our world has changed so much in such a small, finite period of time. And you're looking at the food that we're eating or the foods we're not eating, chronic stress, and our disordered relationship with technology and disordered relationship with sleep, and all of these things are things. Most of the stuff is actually low cost to free that people can do, like you're saying, just very practical things. But I think it really gets down to changing the hearts and minds of people and awakening them to these simple things, because most people are on autopilot. They're consuming information that isn't empowering them to these tools in their life. And what my experience is in being in functional medicine is when you really empower people and encourage people and show them that you don't have to be. This isn't something where you have to be the 1% wealthy to make some really positive action steps in your life. Then people typically will want to start making movements in the right direction. They just don't even hear this information largely.
I think we all lean towards lazy. Just as a species, we just lean towards lazy and easy and sugary. Like, we lean that way. And so then if you surround us, me, you, with a bunch of folks that are maybe less disciplined, and they're eating a bunch of tacos and chips and garbage in front of, like, you find yourself doing it with them, right? And so what drives me nuts, and I know this is going to piss a lot of people off, is why we allow these things to get sold, why we allow businesses to make money with a lot of this stuff. Like we know the harm it causes, right? We know how much it costs us. Why don't we just simply put like a unhealthy tax on all this shit?
Yeah, I think us having these conversations and exploring these ideas are things that Washington, D.C. should be exploring. And how do we, empower people and really educate people? I think that's a powerful tool and should be probably primary. But at the same time, if someone's having a product that is hurting us as a nation, I think it should be called out. But the problem is, and the hesitation that I have in that, is that it's one thing if you and I are maybe in charge and we know, but the problem is you get special interests involved and everybody has a different opinion about what's hurting society. And that's where things fat's a good example of that. If you get a certain group of people that say healthy fats are not good and everyone should be low fat, you're going to get some people in the nutrition world that think that's great and some people that not. So if we could all agree on some basic low-hanging tenets, I think that would be a good idea to say this is good for us as a society and the rest of things could be taxed. But what should be taxed is, I guess, subjective.
Yeah, I think the biggest fight, though, you're going to get, I had this conversation with Joe Rogan, is freedom. Well, why, people want freedom, and if you take the Slurpees away, they feel like but are they really free with diabetes in the hospital? Like, how free are you when you're...
Yeah, right? Freedom is relative, I guess. Because you're right, I see so many people kept back from doing the things that they want to do or living the life that they want to live because they're kept back from chronic health problems. They don't have the energy to do the things they want to do. They physically just can't do it because of their different health issues. Or they're spending, chronic disease and having health problems is expensive for many people. They're spending a lot of money on medications and doctor's visits, and this is not a cheap thing for many people, even with insurance. So without a doubt that it's decreasing their freedom in many different ways. But the libertarian in me really just wants people to make the choices they want to make, but they need to be educated. And they need to have informed consent with the foods that they're eating. And many people don't even know how to read a label. They don't even know what they're even doing because there's just a lack of education about these things. So I think we should start with really empowering people with knowing that they wield a lot of influence on their biochemistry with every meal. Every meal is another opportunity to feed health or feed health problems. And it also changes the industries as well. They really influence the industry, like we do as collectively as a society, with how we choose to spend our money.
Where are you located?
I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
You're in Pittsburgh. And how long ago did you get into this?
So I've been in it professionally, consulting people, providing them a functional medicine perspective for over a decade. But I've been interested in health and wellness since a little kid. I realize in hindsight now in my 30s, I look back at me as a teenager spending my money from when I worked at the Finish Line on like random supplements or superfoods to see biohacking before biohacking was a thing. I've always been interested in health and wellness, but professionally for the past 11 years or so.
What should people do? Should they even eat food with labels? Maybe we should just get rid of anything with a label we don't eat.
Or that's a good start as a foundation. And then go for, there's amazing brands out there that are coming up with more convenient options. People want convenience. And I think there's a really exciting innovation in the healthy snack space. And I think we should support brands that are trying to get better alternatives. I think the best are typically foods without labels. You're absolutely right. But if you're going to go towards packaged foods, let's support brands that are trying to get better alternatives. And there's a place for better. And there's definitely the best should be at the foundation of our plate and our meals. So people need to start just simplifying their life and going back to the basics and focusing on food. I don't think someone should fast their way out of a poor diet, but start with food and really complement that food with some measured, flexible, intermittent fasting, which there's amazing studies to show it helps to support lowered inflammation, improved brain function and energy, mitochondrial function, supporting gut health. It's amazing cascade of benefits when we tap into this physician within, as Paracelsus called it. But food is first, right? I don't think people should jump into intermittent fasting or fasting without getting their food right.
When you just talk about intermittent fasting, it just occurred to me that let's agree on something. How long has our species been on the planet? I've seen on the History Channel maybe 1 million years.
Yeah,
they found
something like that.
Let's call it 1 million years, right? In some form, and we've developed. I have to imagine for 99.999% of that time, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm an idiot, there was no intermittent fasting. There was probably, if you're lucky, 1 meal a day. But then a guy like me, who's into business, who, got involved with Wall Street, all of a sudden said, well, let's sell people 2 meals a day. And then somebody said, let's do 3 meals a day, kind of like 7-minute abs. So, intermittent fasting, why? Because in the last few years, we got used to 3 or 4 or 5 meals a day?
Yeah. And then you go back to what many people are told to do is having 6 small meals a day. So they're always eating and always snacking. This is, and I talk about it in Intuitive Fasting in the book, but this is largely from the food industry. And it's co-opting with food legislation and how we're being educated from the top down over the past, however many decades. So you're absolutely right. What we call intermittent fasting or time compressed feeding, our ancestors would just say Monday or Tuesday and be like a typical day because it wasn't an intentional thing. But we have to be intentional because we've so far removed and the chasm is so great between genetics and epigenetics. The world we're living in today is so far divorced from our roots that we kind of have to remind ourselves. So that's why I called the book Intuitive Fasting. Well, in our culture, fasting won't be intuitive. Metabolic inflexibility on a physical level and then all the confusion out there with Dr. Google is going to really make fasting anything but intuitive. But when we get back to our roots and we gain some metabolic flexibility and we really just check in with our body, fasting will be more intuitive because you'll be so satiated, you won't be as hungry. You will be able to be more metabolically flexible and you can go longer without meals, not because it's some obsessive fad diet, this disordered eating. It's because you're more in alignment with your biochemistry. You're decreasing that mismatch between genetics and epigenetics. So yeah, it is. It's definitely something that I want people to just be more in alignment with what we've evolved with as the human species.
Let's talk about metabolic flexibility. I remember I used to do a lot of races. My mother, after she got into the fasting and vegan and yoga kick, she found a race in Queens, New York that still exists today called the Transcendence Run. It's 3,100 miles around a 1-mile loop. And for 60 days, people just run in circles. And obviously, to do that, you've got to be metabolically flexible. And so my training in life became, I'm going to run without food. I'm going to run without water. I should have probably not done the without water part, but I trained my body to be able to switch from burning, glycogen to burning fat pretty easily without a bonk. And so is that what we're referring to when we say metabolic flexibility?
Yeah, it's ability to burn both fat and sugar.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Loran Oils. Put your best foot forward in competition and make your recovery essential. Loran's 100% pure botanical essential oils are optimal for athletes looking for natural and holistic approaches when it comes to wellness and supporting performance. Spartans, are intense workouts burning you out? You can give your mind and body self-care and rest with Loran's essential oils. As you train, stretch, and meditate, use their 100% pure botanical oils in diffusers, roller balls, massage oils, or lotions. Help boost overworked muscles and promote relaxation and focus so you can crush your race day goals. Loran's origins are in pharmacy, and they have been a trusted supplier for over 50 years to home consumers, spas, massage therapists, and personal care manufacturers, always offering essential and base oils, waxes, and natural butters at affordable prices. Their quality-tested oils are obtained through cold press or steam distillation. There's no alcohol, added solvents, or other diluting agents. Loran's essential oils are perfect for your active rest days or for baking and cooking for your plant-forward needs. Their food-grade oils can add great flavors and great aromas to your favorite nutritious recipes as you fuel up, train, and recover. Remember, you can save 15% off site-wide with your next purchase. Just use the code SPARTAN15 at checkout. Go to LoranOils.com. That's LORANNOILS.com. And don't forget to use that code SPARTAN15.
So is that what we're referring to when we say metabolic flexibility?
Yeah, it's ability to burn both fat and sugar. So it's our birthright. All babies are born producing ketones, whether they're breastfed or not. They are producing ketones, and that's what's added to many formulas, baby formulas, that if they aren't breastfed, is MCT oil and different fats. That babies need ketones for proper neurological development. It's part of our species. And over time, because of that genetic epigenetic mismatch, we lose that flexibility. We become more metabolically inflexible or metabolically rigid because we're eating and living out of alignment with our biochemistry. So it creates a whole host. I mean, look, it's upwards of 80% of the United States is somewhere on this insulin resistant spectrum, whether they're having weight loss resistance, fatigue, they're struggling with things like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome for women, or prediabetes, syndrome X, or type 2 diabetes, and then everything in between that. So that's not normal, but it's common. And that's the poster child for metabolic inflexibility. But then you look at the 50 million Americans that have an autoimmune disease. That's a form of dysregulated inflammation levels in the body. Many of those have metabolic components to it as well. So there's a lot of disordered metabolisms and disordered inflammation levels in people's body that it's all a sign of metabolic inflexibility.
Well, let's walk through a day, perfect day for I don't know, 50 or 100,000 people are going to listen to or watch this. What should they do? They wake up in the morning. What should they do?
So in the book, it's one thing. As a clinician, I'm looking at labs and getting their labs looking great. So if I'm clinically monitoring somebody, I really can make it work with their schedule, and I want there to be an intuition and a flexibility to this. But for the sake of some action items for people, I built a 4-week protocol in the book. And then over time, they can intuitively evolve this to work with their schedule, because this has to be an innate thing. That has to be sustainable, because it's not going to be good if you just do it for 4 weeks and then drop it. I really want them to learn these tools and then own it for themselves and evolve it to work with what they prefer. And that's another aspect of functional medicine. It's bio-individuality. We're all different, and we can kind of bring in different aspects of these tools in a way that works for us sustainably. But week 1 is in the book. It's the body reset fast. It's very simple to do. And for the fasting aficionados in the fasting world, they're going to think this is the most unsexy form of intermittent fasting ever. But many people, they're just eating too late at night. So I put together a 12-12 time compressed feeding window, which if you have 24 hours in a day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., have it work with your schedule. But you're allowing a couple of hours after dinner before you go to bed. So you're basically fasting through the night before you break the fast at breakfast the next morning. So it's just getting people to quit the late night snacking, to allow their body to actually repair while they're sleeping, which is hugely important. Week 2 is about an 18-hour fast. So we jump up, we're leaning into it. We're progressively going into these vacillating, ebbing and flowing eating and fasting windows. So an 18-hour fast, you're fasting in the morning if you want to do it that way, and you're breaking your fast at lunchtime. So you have a 6-hour eating window, like 12 to 6 p.m. if you want to use that as an example, or an 18-hour fast. So you break your fast, and what I would recommend is people to eat what I refer to as a ketotarian way of eating, which is a clean, nutrient-dense ketogenic diet that's cyclical. You don't always have to be in ketosis. I talk about clean carb cycling at length in the book, around heavier workouts, around female's menstrual cycle, around just personal preference. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is always depending on these clean carbohydrates for fuel. That's when metabolic inflexibility can start to be bred or grown over time. So by eating and focusing on healthy fats like wild-caught fish, avocados, olives, nuts and seeds, grass-fed beef, coconut, cream, coconut milk as the foundation of this ketotarian way of eating. Lots of vegetables, real foods from the earth, any vegetable you can think of, plus like low fructose fruits like berries. That's going to be a good template for people to eat more in alignment with their biochemistry. And then they can eat as much as they want in that eating window, meaning they should be eating until satiety within that eating window. People should not conflate chronic caloric restriction with intermittent fasting. It's not the same thing. We're eating until satiety within our eating window, and that's what the studies have shown to be really beneficial.
But also, sorry to interrupt, and because you and I are completely aligned, 1,000%. If you're eating salads and you're eating berries and you're eating nuts and you're eating health, like, eat as much as you want. The problem is, guys, you know this, after you eat your big salad, and you can't turn your salad into a pizza, right? You're not covering it with all kinds of shit, right? You're going to then look for a cookie because you're not hungry anymore. You're not hungry. If you were hungry, you'd keep eating salad.
Yeah, you're right. And that's where people feel like they have to eat like a rabbit to be healthy. And that's where I think healthy fats and clean protein really fill in the gap there, because it really is satiating and people are less inclined to want to have the junk food or the food that's going to sabotage how they want to feel. And that's the paradigm shift that I really talk at length with my patients, that I want people to know on this conversation, and I want them to know in the book is, look, avoiding foods that make you feel like crap isn't restrictive, it's self-respect. And people need to they need to get out of that dieting mentality. This is super restrictive, it's super arduous. I want people to love feeling great more than they thought they missed something that made them feel like crap. And that's not that people don't have that aha moment right away, but when people start feeling great and they start getting some self-respect for themselves, then it's a bad trade-off to go and focus on things that really make you feel horrible. And that doesn't mean you don't have cookies or you don't have whatever you want to have. There should be a freedom when it comes to this, but that's when the better alternatives come into play, where you're getting something with almond flour that's sweetened with maple syrup versus the random white flour junk food that you're going to get at your supermarket. So that's my ethos when it comes to these things.
You know, one thing that people could do to really just feel better, simple, they don't have to change their whole life, they don't have to go to hot yoga classes. One thing, what would it be?
Decrease the amount of sugar and even the nice sounding sugar euphemisms. Read labels, educate yourself. Decrease the amount of things that turn into sugar, like grains, and increase healthy fats and clean protein. That would be the biggest change that people could make, the first start.
How do they find out about you and the book? And how do they get more information?
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Everything is at drwillcole.com. That's drwillcole.com.
Awesome. And the book?
It's called Intuitive Fasting. It's out now.
You're awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up Podcast. Spartan Up is your partner in resilience for mind, body, and spirit. We're here 3 days every week. Tuesdays, you can find Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan, interviewing biohackers, business leaders, authors, and athletes. Thursdays and Saturdays, catch episodes from our DECA, Endurance, Trail, Combat, and La Ruta series. Do you know someone who needs a little nudge? Maybe they could use some motivation, tactics to be stronger, healthier, happier, more successful. Tell them about our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to know who's watching and who's listening. Thanks. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Loran Oils. After your next workout, help soothe tired muscles with Loran's affordable, quality-tested, 100% pure botanical essential oils. Visit LoranOils.com, that's LoranOils.com, today and get 15% off site-wide when you use the code SPARTAN15 at checkout.